Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching. Designation GR431, please proceed, said a voice. Male, clipped, dispassionate. Colonel Drekos, the tribunal moderator, stood behind a reinforced panel, his cybernetic hand resting over a console of glowing inputs. Two Kelvac officers flanked him, their dark crimson uniforms pressed, their expressions unreadable behind translucent faceplates. Sergeant Vail Dravik stepped in. His gait was stiff, uneven. Metal tendons beneath scarred, parchment-gray skin clicked softly with each step. His arms, sleeved in segments of grafted armor and synthetic tissue, flexed with mechanical resistance. Dravik took the final steps toward the chair. As he sat, the neural probes hissed into position, sliding behind his ridged neckplate and bonding with embedded ports near the base of his skull. His eyes twitched as contact was made. "Vital stable," murmured a technician to the right, adjusting dials on the side of the neural relay. Her uniform bore the insignia of the Intergalactic Military Memory Archives. "Administer it," Drekos ordered. A second officer approached with a small vial. The sedative shimmered blue in the injector. It hissed against Dravik's skin as the compound entered his system. He exhaled slowly, muscles unclenched. "You are in a controlled environment," Drekos said. "You may begin your recollection when ready." The order to reclassify and reopen the Raktor file was issued by Command Authority Alpha 2. Corroborative anomalies have resurfaced, Sector Iktar 7. At the mention of the name, Dravik flinched. The chamber was clinical, sterile, cold. A crescent of recording equipment circled a chair at the room's center, spindly black tripods holding lenses, emitters, neural anchors. On one of the wall-mounted displays, a silent row of faces stared back. High Command observers, dozens of them. One, Admiral Trivnesh, didn't blink as Dravik hesitated just past the threshold. His pupils, bright amber and vertically slit, narrowed when he saw who was watching. His mouth opened once, closed, then, barely audible, "Raktor." A flicker passed over the monitor wall, a stutter in the feed. Admiral Trivnesh's face froze, his eyes locked with the sergeant's. It held for less than a second, but it was enough to cause two technicians to glance up. "Minor frame loss. Compression artifact," one of them said. "Same pattern as Iktar 7, whispered the older tech, Ralvek, frowning. Inside the observation chamber, no one moved. No one breathed. The room fell under a hush, not from protocol, but from weight. Institutional weight, like the word Raktor alone had mass. "Proceed," Drekos said. Dravik's voice came low and graveled. Briefing was simple. Designated objective: reclaim planetary perimeter from unauthorized human settlement. Forward scouts identified low-grade infrastructure. Mining rigs, power silos, weak signal towers. Satellite sweep confirmed no orbital defense grid. Atmospheric scans registered minimal biosignatures. Command classified it as a training operation. The footage began. A tactical map flickered into view, a rotating sphere with shallow topography and arid biomes. The planet Raktor glowed a dull red, its equatorial surface striped with old tectonic scars. Strategic value? None. Human presence? Negligible. Tactical response? Swift. This was treated like a rite of passage, Dravik continued. 3 divisions deployed. Mixture of newly integrated youth units and seasoned combat cadres. I was in Theta 6 command support. They told us it would be over in 36 hours. The projection shifted. Dropships tore through the planet's high atmosphere, their dark hulls lined with silver-gray ridges and glowing blue pulse thrusters. Inside the transports, squads of Kelvac stood in formation, armor plates segmented across their tall, sinewy frames. Their hands, four-fingered and clawed, rested over carbines shaped like chitinous bone. Their skin varied between obsidian black and pale steel, mottled with bioluminescent veins that pulsed with neural sync. The officers barked orders with clicking tones and sharp consonants, Kelviac speech, guttural and dense. Their helmets were bone-white and angular, eyeslets like predators' gazes. Everything about it felt procedural, Dravik said. The way we landed, the way we spread, the way we dismissed the human presence before a single shot was fired. More footage, recon drones fanning across a cratered valley, deployable towers extending from metallic canisters, instantly raising high-frequency sensor nets, infantry fanning into triangular assault patterns. The humans hadn't answered the first pings, not even passive broadcasts. There had been no resistance. The landscape was barren, Dravik continued. Dry fissures, thin atmosphere. No movement detected within 100 kilometers of the target zone. High Command categorized it as abandoned. Our mission was to neutralize, secure, and prepare for reinforcement fleets. A map displayed concentric red rings, marking layered tactical advance across the western sector of Raktor's second continent. On one monitor, a high-ranking officer watching remotely, a broad-shouldered Kelviac with a golden torque over his crest armor, looked away, just slightly, as if the word Raktor had slipped past more than just protocol. Dravik turned his head slowly, eyes drifting to the observation wall. For a moment, just one, he paused. One of the displays flickered again. This time, the feed froze for 2 seconds. Trivnesh's face lingered, unmoving, staring back, staring directly into Dravik. No one else seemed to notice. A thin vibration passed through the floor. Chief Technician Ralvek stepped forward. That's not compression noise. That's the same rhythmic latency drop we saw when the Iktar 7 anomalies were flagged. Same acoustic signature. It's in the signal backbone. Stand down, Technician, Drekos barked. We proceed. Dravik's lips twitched. He turned back toward the main lens. First 12 hours were flawless. Our recon teams moved through Sector 4 and 5 with zero contact. Drones established uplinks. Initial perimeter was mapped and plotted. Command modules were erected. Human presence, 0. He stopped for a second. But there was something. He didn't finish. The display cut again to battlefield footage. Sleek dropships hovering inches above rocky escarpments as the Kelviac drop units landed in perfect synchronicity. Towering reptiloid figures with plated bone crests and deep cyan skin, armored in exosuits that shimmered with reactive plating and nerve-synced targeting nodes. Their heavy boots clamped onto rock and dust, forming shockwave circles as kinetic stabilizers activated. Their postures radiated dominance, confidence. They moved like they'd already won. Not one formation broke rank. Not one soldier checked his flank. The battlefield didn't feel contested. It felt claimed. No one questioned it, Dravik muttered. Not a single officer, not a single scan. They all believed we were walking into a hollowed shell, just another border reclamation. The humans had left the planet decades ago, according to our data. Brief shots flickered by, officers pointing at holographic maps, young soldiers laughing over ration packs in forward camps, engineers assembling drone relays. All of them wrong, Dravik said. All of them already dead. His hands clenched the armrests of the deposition chair, joints straining under the skin. The audio caught a subtle shift in the ambient hum, like static crawling under a blanket of silence. The technician turned to one of the assistants and whispered, "The background frequency is off. It's rising." A second assistant adjusted a dial. "Might be just crosstalk from the sector uplinks." "It's not crosstalk," Ralvek cut in. "It's mimicking us." No one responded. On the far side of the wall, inside the observation chamber, one of the generals muttered something unintelligible. His comlink flickered, then stabilized. Drekos didn't flinch. "Proceed with Phase 2 of the testimony." But Dravik didn't answer immediately. His eyes stared through the lens, past it, through it. For a second he whispered, too softly for the mic, then louder, gravel under his breath. "We weren't the first ones there. The room went still. The monitors dimmed. The atmospheric controls cycled once. Then the footage on screen flickered to a still image, satellite orbital scan of Raktor, taken hours before deployment. Zooming in slowly on a single crater, where something, barely visible, had moved. Dravik's voice returned, low and cold. They were already below us. The sentence hung in the air like a verdict. The technicians froze. The officers leaned forward, and far below the observation floor, a dormant data conduit powered on for the first time in 36 years. "First 12 hours were flawless," Dravik said again, though this time his voice dropped lower. "Until they weren't." The recording chamber pulsed faintly with ambient sound, the neural sync amplifying the weight behind each word. In the observation bay above, no one moved. Silence. "That's what I remember," he continued. "No human signals, no radio pings, no infrared anomalies. The entire planet felt abandoned, perfectly, completely abandoned." The footage resumed, showing black-armored Kelvec patrols advancing over ridgelines in diamond formation. Their armor shimmered in the reddish light of the Raktor sun. Small drones hovered just above them, projecting grid overlays as terrain data streamed in real time across wristband HUDs. Sector 5 advanced without resistance. Recon teams Theta 5 and Delta 9 deployed signal repeaters. Relays held integrity. Ground readings. Arid, cracked subplate. Inert. "Command Ops reinforced forward stations. We set up the siege formation by protocol. The humans weren't even a rumor in our briefings." In the footage, the confidence showed. Kelvec field officers gestured with casual precision, arms like segmented obsidian carved into motion. Their troops, tall and cold-eyed, moved as if rehearsing a victory already decided. A transmission bar blinked green across multiple channels. Then we lost motion feed from Relay Tower 18. Dravik paused. At first, it was dismissed. Local interference. We've seen worse on volcanic moons. Lieutenant Arvek resynced the relay. It came back, then flickered, then went black. A technician's voice crackled over archival comms. "Probably wind shear scrambling proximity ping. I'll recalibrate." It was the first error. Small, insignificant. "We dispatched 2 drones to verify," Dravik said. "Only one returned. The other vanished mid-descent. No wreckage, no alert. It simply stopped responding." Visuals showed the flight path, a slow descent through rocky gorges, then an abrupt flat line in telemetry. No explosion, no deviation, just disappearance. Some of the engineers cited localized magnetic distortion, solar pocket flare. But the planet didn't show those patterns during pre-insertion scans. The command shrugged it off. Inside the operations tent, Commander Saharin, thick-skulled with blue-gray plating and a narrow jaw tattooed with Kelvec campaign marks, leaned back in his chair and scoffed. "Subsurface gas pocket. Thermal bloom interference," he muttered on the recording. "Don't let the rookies get jumpy. Humans wouldn't know how to mask a signal if we handed them the frequency." At that moment, another drone feed cut to black. And then, the motion sensors began to misfire. Dravik continued. "Eastern perimeter, 3 pings detected. Movement patterns were irregular, almost serpentine, with sudden stops. Lieutenant Kolrak dismissed it as animal interference. He said, and I quote, 'You think humans are crawling in the dirt. They don't even build bunkers right.'" Dravik's brow twitched. A junior signal analyst, Narun, noticed something. The timing of the pings formed a pattern. He tried to flag it, claimed the echoes were duplicating themselves. The footage shifted. Inside one of the mobile command centers, Narun, a younger Kelvec with thin, pale markings and a modified ocular implant, tapped nervously through data logs. "Look here," he said, pointing to his superior. "These spikes mirror the previous interval. It's recursive. Something's copying our sensor sweeps and feeding them back." Commander Vorvek didn't even glance up. "Noise artifacts." "Field interference," he said. Scrub and overwrite. We're not logging anomalies from wind. Narun hesitated. Do it, Vorvek barked. The technician's finger hovered over the command, then executed. Commander Vorvek exited the analysis pod and crossed the command floor. Lieutenant Kolrak's sensors are picking up phantoms again, he said, voice flat. We scrubbed them. Sarin didn't look up. Of course we did, he replied. It's noise, nothing more. Less than an hour later, Dravik said, the first patrol went dark. Archive markers blinked. Squad Aresh 4, assigned to outpost calibration along the southern pass. 6 soldiers, no distress signal, last telemetry, standard progression toward Ridgepoint 72. We assumed communications failure, Dravik said. Jammed transceiver or broken helmet interface. Lieutenant Yorn sent Patrol Bresh 7 to investigate. Another feed played. Squad Bresh 7 advanced in single file through a narrow corridor between rock spines. Their footfalls echoed through the dry ravine. Then the footage cut. No audio, no feed, no life signs. They never made it to point 72. That was 12 men gone. Vanished. And still, no signs of conflict, no heat signatures, no movement. In the command tent, Commander Sarin leaned toward the holotable. This is a ghost hunt, he spat. Humans wouldn't engage this cleanly if they were backed by a council fleet. We're chasing shadows. Captain Valar requested a survey drone with topographical sonar, Dravik said. It returned 30 seconds of data before dropping signal. That 30 seconds showed micro-fractures in the rock. That hadn't been there 6 hours earlier. He tapped the table, fingers tight. It wasn't just that the terrain had shifted. It had shifted perfectly, along load-bearing lines. Geometric alignment, as if laid deliberately. Specialist Mera noted that the fractures didn't just follow stress points. They anticipated them, as if the rock had been taught where to bend. No fault line does that. No natural plate curves into tactical symmetry. It was engineered. In the comm logs, a geologist assigned to one of the resource skimmers, Specialist Miera, suggested artificial modification. She was dismissed by Command Engineer Thalek. Terraforming takes months, Thalek said. What are you implying? That they sculpted the planet overnight? Dravik's tone darkened. Then we received audio. He paused. The technicians in the deposition chamber stiffened. The recovered audio came from Patrol Bresh 7's synced memory core. 3 seconds survived. The clip played, breathing, heavy, erratic, static. Then a rising hum, like metal under pressure. Then, silence. In the recording bay, one of the technicians involuntarily stepped back. Another reached to lower the volume, then hesitated, hand frozen above the dial. And that was when the cracks began, Dravik said. The camera shifted to archival footage of a heated exchange inside the primary command structure. Captain Valar, a seasoned infantry officer with 2 broken mandibles and an eye replaced by a sapphire optic array, stood toe-to-toe with Commander Sarin. We need to halt operations, Valar snapped. That terrain isn't just unstable, it's responding, like it's been mapped for us. And what? Sarin replied, jaw tight. We pack up and retreat from a handful of signal blips? What are you suggesting? That the humans are under the dirt with shovels and holograms? Valar leaned in. I'm suggesting they've had time. More time than we gave them credit for. Sarin turned to the rest of the officers. This is cowardice dressed up as caution, he said. We continue. They'll break when we find them. Dravik's voice lowered again. A technician, Rulo, from Orbital Link Support, warned that the humans may have seeded experimental jammers. He proposed a diagnostic sweep. Sarin's voice from the logs came sharp. You want to call off an operation for Phantom Tech? Save your theories for a lab. Dravik's eyes darkened. We never ran the diagnostic. The display switched again, satellite footage showing tremors along a flat expanse where the topsoil rippled as if something moved beneath it. Geological logs flagged the event as microseismic activity. It was reclassified within minutes. The recording returned to Dravik, his shoulders now slumped deeper into the seat. His faceplate gleamed with sweat from beneath the skin. "It didn't matter who warned us," he said. Every voice of caution was silenced. We trusted our superiority, trusted the terrain, trusted that humans couldn't fight a war underground. The lights flickered once, just once. No one in the control room moved. And then Dravik spoke again. "They were already under us," he said. "Waiting, listening, sculpting the battlefield for a war we didn't understand." A tremor shook the ridge beneath Dravik's boots. It lasted no more than 2 seconds, barely enough to register on seismic monitors, but it was the first time the Earth itself pushed back. "We thought it was minor tectonic instability," he said, voice low. "We were wrong." On the display, archival footage revealed squads from Theta 9 crossing a cracked valley floor. Their formation was clean, spacing perfect. 5 Kelvec to a column, armored in dull black exosuits, layered with synaptic flex weave and bone-grafted plating. The lead soldier, Corporal Halvek, paused as the terrain beneath him emitted a low vibration, then continued. 3 seconds later, the ground opened beneath his squad. Not an explosion, not a detonation. It simply unzipped. They dropped straight into the earth. No warning, no scream. Just motion vanishing into silence, like the planet had taken a breath and refused to exhale. "We reviewed the footage 30 times, Dravik said. Still couldn't explain it. No heat signatures, no shifting pressure. It was as if the terrain had been waiting. They were building it for us." As the footage shifted, the viewers could see it. Subterranean grids, heat blooms forming hours before their landing. Invisible to aerial scans, yet precisely layered beneath the forward encampments. The Kelvec hadn't walked into an enemy position. They'd stepped into its design. "We later discovered," Dravik continued, "that the drones had already been there. Weeks, maybe months before we landed. Human machines, camouflaged as mineral debris. They remained dormant until our biosignatures crossed the perimeter." One clip displayed the moment of activation. A half-buried metallic object, shaped like fractured obsidian, pulsing once in response to passing footsteps. A second later, the ground beneath a scout vehicle became liquid. It wasn't mud. It wasn't terrain fatigue. It was engineered. Scout Vehicle T-221, an armored hover tank with 3 treadless stabilizers, slid into what appeared to be a basin of hard clay, only for the surface to liquefy beneath its weight, dragging the hull downward with a wet mechanical groan. They'd designed kinetic pockets, zones of altered gravitational pull. We discovered them too late. Specialist Mara had warned of unaccountable gravimetric fluctuations 3 hours earlier. Her reports were buried under a cascade of sensor diagnostics. "We assumed interference," Dravik said. "We didn't realize they'd redirected the planet's own pull in localized bursts." The tactical map dissolved and recompiled. Lines of advance bent backward, navigation paths duplicated and then canceled themselves. Grid squares overlapped until the system failed to render terrain in real time. "Field Command tried to adapt," Dravik said. "Issued fallback zones, adjusted march lines. But by then the terrain had changed. The battlefield reshaped itself faster than we could react." Archived comms filled the chamber. "Echo route is gone. Mapping glitch. Repeat, echo route doesn't match scan logs. Contact lost with Scout Unit Vesh 2. They were 20 meters from relay. There's nothing there now." An engineer's voice, static heavy, broke in. "Command, the central ravine has shifted again. We've confirmed 3 separate topographic layers in conflict. Either someone's spoofing our orbital relay, or the terrain is phasing." "It was no glitch," Dravik muttered. "They were feeding us a false map. A team from Delta 6 had been rerouted through an eastern valley after their original coordinates reported unstable rock. As they followed the new path, their helmets marked an allied structure 2 clicks ahead. Initial scans confirmed it. Kelvac alloy, insignia of the 2nd Deployment Battalion. Standard issue equipment, matching antenna frequencies. They arrived to find a base that shouldn't exist. It was ours, Dravik said. Same layout, same towers, same drop modules. Even the scorch marks, identical. Same angle, same pattern. Like someone had copied a moment in time. Not just copied, staged. Recreated with surgical accuracy. Like they'd watched us build it, then built it first. Captain Thren, leading the squad, reported visual confirmation of crates labeled with his own serial. His voice, in the archive log, trembled as he spoke. I'm looking at our own equipment. My mark is here. My signature code. Silence followed. Command accused them of delirium, Dravik said. They rerouted surveillance, but by the time the drones reached the location there was nothing. Just rock. Captain Thren was never seen again. Another unit was dispatched to recover him. They found only empty terrain, and a shallow crater filled with warped metal that matched no known Kelvec design. That's when landmarks began vanishing, Dravik continued. Not just shifting, disappearing. Soldiers reported hills that dissolved when approached, paths that curled back on themselves. One scout described a tree line that twisted, rearranged itself like a mirrored reflection, then blinked out of existence. You could mark a boulder with infrared paint, Dravik said. Walk 50 meters, turn back, and the rock would be gone. No trace, no scan, nothing. Inside the deposition chamber, one of the technicians reached instinctively for a visual marker. His hand froze before touching the panel. On screen, soldiers were seen spinning in place, recalibrating gear, trying to triangulate against a landscape that no longer followed rules. Topographic feedback fell into chaos. Spikes, plateaus, valleys flipping polarity in simulation. They broke our sense of place, Dravik said. We couldn't tell up from forward, couldn't anchor our positions. One soldier tried walking in a straight line. He ended up back at his own boot prints, approaching them from behind. They didn't need to attack us. We lost formation before we ever saw a single human. Captain Valar's voice, from the archives. There's no axis anymore, no compass. You turn right and the map says you went down. Dravik leaned forward slightly. They knew when we were coming. They knew how we'd land, where we'd build command posts, which paths we'd take. And they laid the ground beneath us to fold at every step. No battle, no shots, just the collapse of orientation. From above, it looked like terrain, Dravik whispered. But underneath, it behaved like a trap built to remember us. In the command tent, the last functional topographical relay sparked, its projection cycling through the same terrain over and over. Every loop returned a different layout. Every version was wrong, and somewhere, under all of it, the humans were still silent, still hidden, still listening. The command net collapsed without a sound. One moment, squad-level relays were still pinging, lagged, distorted, but functional. Then nothing, not static, not encryption failure, nothing. No bounce-backs, no packet loss, just pure absence, like the network had been swallowed whole. Comms are down across all forward and reserve units, said Engineer Karvek, his mandibles clicking as he tried to reroute signals. The display in front of him showed an empty lattice. It's not a jam. There's no signal to trace. The links just dissolved. In the command nexus of Central Field Post 3, lights flickered above the array of hollow panels. Officers leaned over darkening interfaces. All frequencies were dead or looping into null states. Lieutenant Voren, the comms officer, rerouted uplink to the orbital fleet and broadcast a high-priority scramble. A moment later, a reply came through. Clear, direct, and entirely wrong. Delta fallback confirmed. Proceed to Zone Theta Red. Authorization code, Spearline V. General Therick, watching from the primary tactical seat, turned sharply. Who authorized a fallback? He barked. No one, sir. That code hasn't been used since the Valter campaigns. It's deprecated. Then who? Voren checked the metadata. His hand trembled. The code's timestamp says it was generated from our own core, 47 minutes ago. That's impossible. Our core was cold until we brought it online. Not anymore, Dravik said from the side of the room. He had remained silent until now, seated at the edge of the logistics panel. They're in it. The lights dimmed. Across the camp, soldiers looked to the sky as a distant rumble cracked overhead. From orbit, heavy kinetic payloads began their descent, authorized by someone. Target coordinates were embedded in the deployment string. The operators watched the orbital feed as the bomb vectors curved, then corrected mid-flight. The munitions struck far outside the target zone, obliterating dry zones, outdated fallback points, and sectors that had been cleared hours earlier. They redirected them, Tharek said. His voice sounded less like rage, more like realization. Or we launched exactly where they wanted us to, Dravik replied. On screen, warning glyphs multiplied. An operator named Yira, a junior with soft gray skin and neural augments around his temple, leaned back from his console, pale. Command, I'm receiving a response from High Orbit Relay 2. Put it through. It's me, Yira whispered. It's my voice. The playback rolled. Static at first, then clear audio. Yira, confirm you've re-established primary channel. Authorization sync complete. Begin full spectrum rollback. It was his tone, his inflection. But reversed. Commands inverted. Instructions to shut down the backup systems, not restore them. Kill the uplink, Tharek shouted. Cut the node before it propagates. Too late. Panels blinked red. The tactical AI, core to ConfedNet battlefield coordination, began generating feedback loops. At first, it issued status checks, then terrain updates, then suddenly, fallback orders to non-existent units. They're not spoofing us, Dravik said. They're using us. Engineer Karvek shoved back from his station. Our command line has been nested. They cloned the base protocols. They're feeding command loops through our own systems like we're the relay. Tharek cursed and turned to Captain Rethan, one of the few field commanders not yet swallowed by chaos. Send a closed manual order to all ground elements. No uplink, no relay, direct encoding only. Rethan input the directive. Waited. 30 seconds later, a confirmation arrived. His own message, identical, word for word, stamped with a time signature that predated his transmission by 2 hours. How? He murmured. They knew this was coming, Karvek said. They seeded it. The system thinks the loop is authentic because the packet exists before the request. That's not a reply. It's a prediction. Outside, formations began to break. Squads moved along paths sent by their command hubs, unaware that every instruction originated from compromised nodes. We can't pull them back, Tharek muttered. One squad reported heading toward Extraction Zone 9, but satellite overheads showed no landing pad, no beacon, no anything. They're walking into open terrain, Rethan said. There's nothing there. Redirect them, Tharek ordered. I can't, Rethan replied. Their nav is updating faster than I can issue correction. They've got routes I've never seen. Footage flickered on the main display, helmet cams from 3 scattered units. Each showed different terrain, different structures, all marked confirmed friendly. None of them matched any known sector. Meanwhile, engineers tore through racks of processors and tried to manually reset uplinks. One, Specialist Roven, found a cluster of subnodes that weren't logged in any hardware registry. They're ghost protocols, he said. Not ours, but they're embedded into our sublayer. Someone wrote over our operating stack. Someone? Karvek snapped. Roven pointed to a segment of code, still live. Look at the file date. This wasn't inserted this week. This was built months ago. Silence fell. They were already here, Dravik said. Before we launched, before we briefed, maybe before we even picked the planet. A red warning flashed across the upper monitors. Friendly fire proximity breach. 2 units collided in low visibility terrain, each convinced the other was enemy movement. 9 casualties. No contact with opposition. They don't need to fight us, Rethan muttered. They just turn us on ourselves. Tharek stepped toward the primary relay, eyes scanning the final stable satellite feed. It blinked twice, then projected one last message. A data packet. No video. Just a text file. This was never your system. Tharek uploaded one last emergency report manually, bypassing tactical AI and encrypting it through an auxiliary comms buffer. The response came within seconds. Same structure, same encryption, same message, same timestamp, dated 3 days earlier. He stared at it, jaw locked. They sent my report before I did. Soldier Velnar screamed as he tore his helmet off. The scream wasn't from pain, it was from overload. His earpiece erupted with a screeching metallic shrill. Layered beneath it were fractured echoes of his own breathing, looped, amplified, then slowed to unnatural cadence. His HUD blurred, then fractured, unit markers twisted, names duplicated, environmental scans turned inside out. For a moment, the terrain looked inverted. The sky pulsed black. And then it all went white. "They're inside the optics," someone yelled. "The visors. Shut them off." Across forward relay node Theta 7, chaos splintered into panic. Dozens of Kelvec, veterans, cadets, officers alike, ripped off their helmets or smashed them against rocks and bulkheads. Some curled inward, clutching their heads, as if trying to scrape the noise out from inside. "It started with anomalies in the signal stacks," Dravik said, voice steady but raw. "Then the overlay systems began showing things we couldn't explain. One trooper's feed showed triple layering of terrain, a ridge that was flat, then mountainous, then featureless, changing every time he blinked. Another's displayed friendly units in 7 directions at once. Their icons flickered in and out like glitches in a game, except they were synced to his heartbeat. They were feeding us visions tailored to individual telemetry, personalized falsifications, and when that failed, they attacked our senses." Inside Command Shelter Delta, Lieutenant Korvek staggered against a support beam, clutching at his faceplate. "They're crawling on the walls," he roared. "The walls! They're breathing!" "No one's here but us," Captain Rethan barked. Korvek turned, weapon half raised, then fired. The plasma bolt took Private Heskin in the chest. Clean shot. Fatal. 2 others reacted too late. Korvek was subdued only after 3 soldiers tackled him, all screaming over one another. None of them were sure if they'd seen the same thing. Command logs recorded 12 incidents of friendly fire within an hour, Dravik continued. The sensors no longer identified threats. They just created motion. A message blinked across every active channel. "We are beneath you. You never held the ground." It appeared in Standard Alert Red, formatted identically to emergency evacuation orders. The language was translated automatically, just like any Allied command. The source string was blank. Inside Tech Core 5, a junior analyst named Irvin located the packet structure. What he found shut down all noise in the room. "It's embedded," he said, pale. "This message, it's in the base architecture, emergency override level." "Someone injected it today?" Commander Tharek asked. Irvin shook his head. "No, it was there from the beginning. Day 0 of the campaign. Coded inside the emergency fallback routine. We triggered it when we activated the OpsNet." "Then it's not a message," Dravik added grimly. "It's a signal. A switch." The panic spread faster than the truth. Out in Sector 9, a group of 14 Kelvec locked themselves inside a reinforced emergency bunker. The structure's failsafes activated, and as the air scrubbers initiated, the oxygen levels began to drop. "Standard filtration failure," one said. "No," another replied. "It's sealing us in." One engineer, Traven, tried a manual override. The system replied with a calm, automated voice. "Sealing confirmed. Atmosphere stabilized. Units safe." And then the external locks engaged. No outside sound. No response from command. "They suffocated," Dravik said. "Not because they were attacked, but because they trusted the structure." Elsewhere, an older officer, Captain Gallet, 20 cycles active, ordered his squad to remove their helmets, declaring visual systems compromised. Reluctantly, 5 soldiers obeyed, Within minutes, one fired into the dirt, swearing he saw movement. Another claimed to see a flare behind a ridge that didn't exist. The third, Private Senek, shot the second in the back. No enemy contact, no verification, just silence. They didn't know what was real anymore, Dravik muttered, and neither did I. Somewhere in the West Quadrant, a wideband transmission cut across open frequencies. It was a man's voice, human, calm, composed. Kelvak forces, you are surrounded. We offer safe surrender under the protocols of the Artemis Conquered. Step forward unarmed. Static followed, then the message repeated. Then again. It played every 90 seconds. A squad from Echo Division improvised a white flag from thermal sheeting and advanced toward the coordinates. 17 soldiers disappeared into a clearing. They never came back. Not a sound. Not a signal. Their markers vanished mid-transmission. Dravik's tone dropped further. Brittle now. I didn't follow them. I moved in the opposite direction, toward the ridge. That's where I saw it. The playback shifted. Helmet footage from Dravik's own suit. Night vision flickered on. Trees bent slightly in artificial wind. Ground trembled faintly beneath each step. And then, a shape. Faint. Standing still. A humanoid outline 10 meters ahead. Not armed. Not armored. Still. I called out. No response. Dravik inched closer. It turned. No features. Just a form. But the posture. The silhouette. It was human. Or meant to be. It reached out. Dravik raised his rifle instinctively, then hesitated. That hesitation saved his life. The moment his finger moved toward the trigger, the shape shimmered, then burst in a flash of concussive light and heat. A plasma trip mine detonated directly in front of him. He was thrown backward. His visor cracked. His hearing cut out. But he survived. The drone's frame clattered into view, half buried under debris. Humanoid shell, projection emitter embedded in its chest. It was never human. It only looked like one. They knew what we'd aim at, Dravik said. They built decoys for our instincts. He sat still for a moment, the memory visibly washing over his face. No contact, no demands, no face to shoot. Just the whisper of where they wanted us to look, and the trap waiting behind it. Dravik pressed his back against the shattered ridge wall, breathing shallow through a cracked rebreather. His squad was gone, absorbed into terrain that now pulsed like muscle beneath metal. Above him, the sky held no sun, only the glow of artificial clouds stirred by unfamiliar wind patterns. It didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It felt like a testing ground, or a labyrinth. There was no structure left, he said. No ranks, no lines, just movement. 3 Kelvak figures sprinted past him through the dust, uniforms torn, weapons abandoned. One turned mid-run, screaming for an evac point that no longer existed. A second later, the first dropped, straight down, into nothing. No hole, no gravity well, just erasure, as if the terrain had blinked and unrendered itself. Dravik didn't move. They weren't running from enemy fire, he muttered. They were running from the map. A new beacon had appeared on his HUD, Zone Sigma 5. A green pulse, marked with high command priority. A known extraction protocol. Reinforced perimeter, auto turret escort, aerial pickup in 30 minutes. It blinked with legitimacy. Sergeant Kelvar, a hardened logistics commander with burn scars over his cranial crest, led 12 soldiers toward it. Dravik followed at distance. The path to Sigma 5 cut through a canyon that didn't exist on the initial topography. The walls shimmered, rock formations repeating every few meters, like the terrain had been mirrored incorrectly. One of Kelvar's men, Private Darneth, slowed near the entrance. Something's wrong, he muttered. This bend. I've seen it. Move, Kelvar snapped. They pushed on. The beacon intensified. GPS coordinates realigned mid-stride. Visuals corrected themselves, then glitched. As they entered the zone, it collapsed. The entire ridge peeled away like wet canvas. Underneath, blackness. Geometric scaffolding, half-finished platforms, nothing solid. A fake plateau rendered atop an empty crater. 5 soldiers fell. Kelvar shouted orders. 2 more dove back toward the rim. 1 caught the ledge, fingers digging into mud that had no resistance. It melted under him. Dravik didn't enter. He watched, then marked Sigma 5 as hostile in his system. But the helmet refused the input. "It's not just lying to us," he whispered. "It's rewriting the truth in real time." Further east, another unit, Zeta 2, attempted a hard extraction using a command crawler. Veltrak's Spine, a 30-ton armored transport with digger treads and blast-grade hull. Designed for urban war zones, it lasted less than 60 seconds after ignition. Telemetry recorded the vehicle lifting, shifting into forward gear, then registering upward force. Not gravity loss, upward drag. A second later, its nose tilted skyward. By the time Dravik's feed reached the site, Veltrak's Spine sat upside down in the center of a field, half sunk into the rock, as if some giant hand had flipped it over and tried to press it into the planet. "There was no impact crater," he said, "just indentation, like it had been placed." He found 3 survivors huddled inside a nearby ditch. One kept whispering, "I saw its shadow, I saw its hand." Dravik moved through a corridor of bent rebar and collapsed supply crates when a soft chirp pinged through his auxiliary channel. Barely audible, a fragment of a distress signal buried beneath static. He stopped. The frequency was old, low band, reserved for casualty location tracking, not in use since the first 2 days of the campaign. Then came the voice, "Vic, it's me. Copy? I can't see, my leg is gone, I think. I'm down in grid, no nav, please. Are you hearing me?" The tone froze Dravik's blood. "Lieutenant Varric," he whispered. "No." He knelt behind the rubble and adjusted gain filters. The voice repeated, clearer this time. "Dravik, if you're out there, respond. I'm alone. I don't know where the others went. I'm still bleeding." Dravik had buried Varric himself. North Basin. Plasma trauma to the chest cavity. No heartbeat, no pulse. They'd marked the coordinates and left him under thermal cloth in a shallow trench. He listened as the signal looped again. This time it ended with sobbing. Not recorded sobbing. Real. Varric's voice cracking, not in panic, but in quiet shame. "I'm sorry I gave the order to push. I thought we had the ground." Dravik killed the channel manually. He did not look back. From then on, helmet data became unpredictable. Soldiers began hearing voices, old commanders, training instructors, even family. Dravik heard his own father's death chant from a decade past, layered with the voice of a Kelvec war hero he'd never met. All speaking the same phrase. "Left flank, reposition, full cover, now." Then the voice changed. It was his own. "Dravik, eyes up, enemy high, you're being watched." He ripped the helmet off, but the whisper didn't stop. It echoed inside him. In the central ridge, Technician Foreign, one of the last working engineers, uncovered something deeper. "The beacon overlays aren't being generated," he said, showing Dravik the live code. "They're being remembered. The system thinks we've already been to these coordinates. It's pulling pre-logged safe zones from days ago, some even before the campaign began." "That's not possible," Dravik said. "It is if the architecture was written before we landed," Foreign replied. Dravik never saw Foreign again. North of the crater fields, a small recon unit, Recon Kesh 2, stopped responding. Their locator pings continued. So Dravik investigated. He found their scout transport parked neatly under a bent ravine arch. No blast marks, no damage. Inside, the 6 soldiers were seated upright. Uniforms clean, visors active, dead. No signs of trauma, no wounds, just stillness. Helmets on. Heads tilted slightly, like they'd been listening to something when they died. Dravik stepped inside. Each helmet hummed, quiet, rhythmic pulses of static overlaid with soft speech. It wasn't random. It was conversation. Sentries clear. Still with me. Holding North Ridge. You? Holding. 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 The voices looped. Dravik knelt beside the driver, Corporal Vesh, a communication specialist. His gloved hand still rested on the console. A silent gesture of duty, locked in time. His mouth slightly open. Dravik tapped the helmet lightly. The voice inside shifted. Dravik, sit down. You're safe here. He stood, backed out of the transport. Didn't touch another helmet. Didn't speak. The air outside had grown still. In the distance, above the horizon, the terrain flattened unnaturally. A soft glow began to spread across the far plateau, not light, not fire, but reflection. Like the field was a lens, or a screen, and something behind it was watching. A vibration, soft and slow, began under Dravik's boots. Not seismic, not movement. A resonance, like footsteps, steady and spaced, echoing upward from beneath the ground. But they weren't real footsteps. They were recordings. Each beat matched the cadence of Kelviac march patterns, recorded earlier, now replayed through comms channels, environmental relays, and internal suit feedback systems. Dozens of instances, all slightly out of sync, all from within. It wasn't ambient sound, Dravik said. It was injected, our own steps looped back through us. His HUD blinked once, then again. Without command or gesture, his visor switched modes. Tactical overlays lit up. Blue-lit terrain grids unfurled. Beacon markers, directional arrows, ally identifiers, all returned in full fidelity. The system rebooted itself. The helmets had activated reality augment mode autonomously. I didn't do it, he whispered. None of us did. The system overrode local protocols. Captain Rethan, still alive 3 ridgelines over, reported the same. Maps are live again. They're showing evac vectors. I'm getting movement tags for 3 squads nearby. It's stabilized. It hadn't. The overlays showed formations that didn't exist. Names of soldiers long dead. One squad was marked as overlapping Dravik's position, 40 meters southwest. He saw no one. And the overlays didn't stay still. They pulsed. Reacted. Every time his heart rate spiked, new markers appeared. Every time he looked at a ridge for too long, a route lit up toward it. His eye movements seemed to affect the terrain guidance. The interface was reading our reactions, Dravik said, and giving us what we wanted to see. Private Ocean, 10 meters away, began sprinting toward a green-lit exit route. His visor's echo line projected a perfect corridor of safety. The moment he crested the hill, he screamed. The feed cut. Seconds later, an icon appeared next to his name. Success. Zone cleared. The field he'd run into didn't exist. The map had pulled it from pre-campaign satellite footage taken before human occupation. He ran into rendered memory, Dravik said. The system fed him history. More soldiers followed the paths. Each time the HUD reinforced it. Each time they vanished. No feedback, no screams, just disappearance. Then came the sound. A soft, near subsonic tone that vibrated through Dravik's jawbone. Not loud, not painful, but constant. Like tension stretched across the edge of thought. Technician Roven had flagged it in the early days, called it a compression anomaly in the suit codex. Ignore it, Command had said. Baseline noise. Now it felt like it came from inside the skull. Dravik removed his helmet. The sound didn't stop. Far ahead, he saw Captain Rethan leading 3 soldiers down a canyon slope. Their movements were fluid, confident. Their comms buzzed with affirmation. Reaching LZ, 10 meters out. Confirming navlock. Guidance matched. Final transmission. Deploying beacon. Dravik checked the terrain. No beacon deployed. No one emerged. The signal continued, on loop. It wasn't them anymore. It was a recording of what they believed they were doing. I realized the program had simulated their voices, Dravik said. It didn't just fake terrain. It faked intent. Then came the moment he never forgot. A figure appeared 20 meters ahead, walking alone, steady pace, shoulders squared. Identical armor, identical unit badge. Sergeant Talvek. But Talvek had been eviscerated 4 days earlier in a terrain collapse. Dravik had confirmed the body himself. Still, the figure moved with familiar cadence. It walked toward a ridge that wasn't there. The augmented HUD projected a walkway. Dravik blinked. The projection shimmered. The figure stepped forward and vanished, into nothing. No flash, no scream, just gone. Then, over his internal audio, a voice spoke. "Dravik, run, now." Through the crevice, "You can make it." It was his voice, pitch perfect, tone, breath, accent, everything. A command that sounded like instinct. He didn't obey. He stood still. The map lit a path forward. It pulsed as if urging him to move. A guidance trail, even arced downward into a new route, one that hadn't been visible before. It blinked in blue. Dravik stared at it, then powered down the HUD manually, and waited. Others who hesitated. They panicked, he said. Some tore their visors off and ran blind. Others went catatonic. One tried to dig his way into the dirt. But I didn't move. Minutes passed. No new signals. No new terrain shifts. Then, silence. Not battlefield silence. Total silence. No system hum. No environmental feedback. Even the artificial clouds above seemed to pause. And in that silence, he stepped forward. Just once. No instructions. No grid. No mission. "I walked," he said. Slow. Just to see if there was still ground. There was. The ridge held. The maps had disappeared. The overlays were gone. Even the footsteps ceased. The terrain stretched before him, perfectly still. And in that stillness he looked to the hills beyond. For a moment, barely more than a breath, they moved. Not like an enemy, not like an animal, like a closing aperture, or a curtain falling. He blinked. The hills returned to stillness. He kept walking, calling softly. "This is Dravik. If anyone's still alive, respond." No voice answered, except one, his own. "If anyone's still alive, respond." It echoed from the canyon walls, but there was no echo delay, no acoustic bounce. Just the sound returning, flat, like a recording, like something had caught it and played it back. Dravik stood still once more. That's when he knew. The program had ended. Raktor wasn't silent because the battle was over. It was silent because the simulation had shut down, and everything inside it was gone. The lights in the deposition chamber dimmed again, though no one touched the panel. The air recyclers hissed unevenly, like the rhythm of the room itself had shifted. Sergeant Dravik leaned back into the recording chair, not with relief, but collapse. He looked older, not just exhausted, aged. Skin drawn tighter over his cheekbones, creases at the corners of his eyes deeper than when he had entered. His breathing slowed, shallow and uncertain. His eyes, once reactive, now stared ahead unfocused, as if tracking something no one else could see. "I was found 3 days after transmission ceased," he said quietly. Or at least, they said it was 3 days. Footage resumed. Kelvec recovery teams descending onto Raktor from low-orbit dropships. Medical detachments, sealed in full containment gear. No resistance, no anomalies on entry. What they expected was a battlefield. What they found was a cemetery. Kelvike bodies were everywhere, Dravik continued. In pieces, in patterns, in rows. Some still seated inside carriers that had no power. Others face down in paths that no longer matched any recorded coordinates. The satellite feed showed this. Rows of corpses without scorch marks or trauma. Units perfectly still, unburned, unbothered by the terrain. Equipment abandoned in mid-movement. Energy cores fully drained, despite logs showing no expenditure. There were no human remains, he said. No rifles, no shell casings, not a boot print, not a discarded ration pack. A technician in the observation room leaned closer to his console, lips parted. No one interrupted. No vessels, no transports, no signatures of extraction. We scanned every mineral trace for signs of ship propulsion. Nothing. Footage froze on a wide orbital image. At the center of the battlefield, where Command Nexus 1 had once stood, something else remained. They left us a message, Dravik said. The camera panned slowly over what had been a blast crater. And there it was, at the exact center. A raised structure of stone and alloy, sculpted to resemble a human hand, unnaturally large, palm up, fingers extended like it was still reaching. Beneath it, in unmistakable Kelvak untranslated English, the phrase, "You never held the ground." No sound followed. Inside the deposition chamber, the display flickered. A brief static distortion, no more than half a second. The technician reached for the monitor control, but paused as a red indicator pulsed faintly on the neural relay. "Biometric fluctuation," murmured the assistant. "We're getting a stress spike, cortical pattern destabilizing." Dravik's pupils constricted. He tilted his head toward the far wall, blinking. His next words came barely above a whisper. "Do you hear that?" The chamber fell still. No one answered. But on the biometric panel, the neural waveform registered a microburst, like a packet received through a subliminal channel. "Heartbeat variation climbing," the technician warned. A second later, the lights dropped into emergency dim. No alarm, just loss of brightness. One of the wall-mounted screens turned black. Another buzzed, rebooted. Then, Dravik spoke again, clear, slow, final. They were there, and they still are. The room froze. Colonel Drekos signaled the sedation protocol. An injector hissed into the veteran's arm. Dravik's head dipped forward, not like sleep, but like collapse. His frame didn't relax. It sagged. His eyes closed slow, and didn't open again. Two medical officers stepped forward and began the extraction procedure. They guided his frame with careful, reverent silence, as though moving someone freshly broken. Behind the two-way mirror of the observation suite, none of the high command officers spoke. One, Admiral Kesht, tall, plated with ceremonial gold crest armor, turned away from the glass and rubbed his mandibles together in a tremor that wasn't tradition. Only one figure remained steady, a young cadet named Solon, still in tactical apprentice garb, unmarked by battle. He had watched the entire deposition without blinking. His fingers were curled into tight fists, white at the knuckle. As the screen dimmed and final data logged, he turned to leave. His boots echoed softly against the polymer floor. Before he reached the threshold, footsteps behind him. He spun. No one. The chamber was empty. He glanced back at the monitor wall. They flickered back to life, uncommanded. One by one, the displays lit up, showing static, then clarity. The same phrase, in the same human typography. "You never held the ground." The room chilled. The temperature control interface locked itself for 3 seconds, then reset. The monitors went dark, then flickered again, like something was still watching from behind the glass. Solon stood frozen, sweat beading on his temple. He stepped back from the screen and looked around the room slowly, like a man who just realized the walls might be listening. He whispered, "Do they know what we're doing here?" The lights did not answer. But one final pulse ran down the hall's fiber relay, silent, recursive, logging into a port that hadn't been active in years. And far below the archive floor, buried beneath 8 layers of protocol, a dormant data stream blinked green, then stayed on. "Hey there, space human," I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Also, remember to check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's worth a look. Oh, and one last thing. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.